Hi, and welcome to another edition of Longevity Kitchen with me, Julie. Tonight we are going to be making pico de gallo and guacamole. I had just made a roast, and I know with my leftovers I'm going to want to make tacos, and on my tacos I always want guacamole and pico de gallo. I love it. I could actually probably eat it just with beans and rice every night if you let me. At any rate, tonight I'll teach you how to make pico de gallo, and probably you might know how to make this, but if you don't, if you do, obviously, skip this video, but if you don't, this is how you do it. It's really, really simple. It's as simple as chopping veggies and mixing them up, adjusting the flavor to your liking, and that's it. So a pico de gallo typically has tomatoes, garlic, onion, jalapeno, lemon and lime, and my favorite, cilantro. Cilantro, just so you know, and let's back up. So here's, and guacamole has basically all the same things, and the tomatoes in the guacamole are optional. Some people like tomatoes in their guacamole, some people do not. I personally do, so what I usually do is I make the pico de gallo, and I smash up the avocados, and I just add some pico de gallo to it, and then I adjust the flavor as I like, usually with some more garlic and a little bit more jalapeno. So that's kind of how I make these things, but let's talk a little bit about the ingredients, because there's some fun things here. Cilantro, I don't know if you knew this, but it's not an acquired taste. Like some people that don't like cilantro, like it will taste like soap to them, and apparently that is a genetic characteristic that they, just no matter how much they eat, it will always taste like soap. And I am grateful that it doesn't taste like soap to me, because it's one of my favorite herbs. I used to not like it, but then my aunt used to make these amazing veggie sandwiches with avocado. There'd be this beautiful sourdough bread from San Luis Obispo, California, and she would toast it, and then she would put the avocados on there, and she'd put tomatoes and cilantro, and then squeeze of lemon and some pepper and some salt. Oh, these were like the best sandwiches. And then I fell in love with cilantro, because it all just kind of melded together and made sense. And it really is like the secret ingredient in these two dishes, that and the garlic. Those flavors kind of meld together. But another fun fact about cilantro is that in high doses and high concentrations, it can actually bind to heavy metals. It crosses your blood-brain barrier, say that a few times fast, and binds to heavy metals and can chelate it from the brain. Now, to read more about that, of course, that's, not my research, it's just something I found in passing. There is a man named Dr. Richard Klingert up in Washington. I'll put a link in the show notes if I can to some of his work, but he had talked about that. Now, I'd imagine you need it in higher doses than just a few leaves, but nevertheless, it can't harm you, that's for sure, to be eating lots of cilantro. And then tomatoes, of course, they are high in vitamin C and lycopene, fiber, they're water. They also have a lot of potassium in them, as do avocados. Avocados, didn't know this, fun fact I found out, this avocado will have more potassium in it than a banana. So that's really cool. That's very good for your heart health, okay? But the thing I found the most interesting about avocados is the amount of fiber in this. There's like over 10 grams of fiber in an avocado. And if you think about it, you need about 25, ideally you're getting 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. And most people only get upwards of 5. Gosh, just adding an avocado to your diet a day, I can see why avocado toast is a really popular dish, because you're getting all that fiber first thing in the morning. How wonderful is that? So anyway, and so of course they're high in healthy fats. They're high in vitamins K, E, C, some of the B vitamins, of course, no B12. That's, more animal products, but it also has a lot of copper and zinc. So, avocados are an amazing food. If I had only one veggie, that I could eat, I would definitely pick that. They have, magnesium as well, manganese. They're just endlessly good for you. So they don't have every essential ingredient, but they do have a lot of things, and they'd be pretty easy to live off of if you only had one thing. Okay, so we're gonna get started. I'm gonna chop up the tomatoes. I'm just gonna chop up all the ingredients, and then we'll mix them all together. So let me chop them all up, and then I'll join you back here, and I'll show you how I'm gonna mix them all up. So I have chopped everything, and I was about to cut open the avocados, and then I realized, you know what? Maybe you don't know the secret trick to opening and peeling avocados. I'm not sure. So I thought I'd stop and I will show you how to do that. But let's go over everything else here. So of course, we've cut the lemon and lime in half. It's ready to go into the lemon press, and we'll just use it, you know, to taste. I don't chop my cilantro. I always use scissors for my herbs. I just find it immensely easier. So I just kind of cut it off and slice it in to taste again. I've got quite a few onions here. I probably won't use all of these. And just so you know, you can always put them in a container in the fridge if you're going to use them like within the next 24 hours. If you think it's going to be a lot longer, then you can put them in the freezer and they go well in a soup or any other kind of dish that you might be using sauteed onions in. I've got my jalapeños here, and I always save a little bit of the inside there, that pith and the seeds, because that's kind of where the spice is. So if I want to amp up the spice, I usually add a little bit of that. We'll see, I'm not liking spicy things. And then I've got my garlic, and another fun thing I wanted to tell you about. So this is, you know, the raw garlic, super pungent. It'll taste, you know, it'll add a lot of like spice to it actually as well. But it also, as we all know, can make our breath really, really bad, especially raw garlic. And fun fact, I have found the parsley oil, there's parsley oil tabs, or there's just parsley tabs, that actually really helps mediate any of the stinky breath that you can get from garlic, because you can't just chew on gum, because the bad breath is coming from like in your stomach. And I don't know if it's the sulfur in the garlic, I'm really not sure, but I think we all know, you know, people that have had that kind of garlicky breath, and it can just be a bit much when you haven't had the garlic. I don't understand how that works, but at any rate, I just wanted to share that fun fact with anybody who is going to make this and maybe go out and meet people in public. You might just want to have some parsley oil on hand. I usually, again, I just get them in the little tabs. I think you could probably chew on parsley, but I don't know. I just I find the tabs a little easier just to have on hand. That way I don't always have to have parsley on hand. Okay, so let me show you how to chop open the avocado here. So just pull out any of those little, what do you call them, like the stems. Pull those out, and then you're just going to want to half your avocado like this. Okay. Cut it in half, okay? And then to get the seed out, just careful, make sure your hand is under the avocado and you just kind of drive that in. And you see that first time I almost missed it, but you want to kind of get it into that seed and then pull it out. So obviously you can see that could be quite dangerous. It's not something you want, you know, your 8-year-old doing, okay? But you know, with some practice, you can do it. If you're scared about it at all, I suppose you could try just keeping it on the cutting board, maybe that's a little safer. You just want to, I just find it easier to keep my hand in there. And you just want to get there you go. And boom, okay. And then you're just going to cut these in half. And then ideally, if the avocado is perfectly ripe, this just peels right off. Okay, now when this avocado gets a lot riper, it gets a little harder to peel this off. And so you might have to kind of use a spoon or a knife to get it out. But usually, if you've got them at the perfect peak of ripeness, that's how easy this is. I've seen a lot of people do this online, and they've got one of those like avocado tools, and I'm thinking, I don't know. I've been, you know, obviously eating and using avocados forever, maybe not forever, but you know, many, many years, since my teens. And I've never ever had to use one of those tools. I've just always done it like this. And I've also never cut my hand open. So, you know, maybe I'm just lucky, but I'm also just very, very careful. Okay, so that is that, and we will start mixing this stuff up. Let me wash my hands. Okay, so let's start with the Pico de Gallo. You can see there's a lot of juices already built up from the tomatoes. Hopefully you can see that. Now we're just gonna put, I don't know, maybe like that much. You know, again, you get to decide how much you like. I certainly don't wanna do too much. Let's get a spoon to start stirring this. You can quickly see, you know, kind of the ratio. I'll probably put a few more onions in there. And I just go by like the color, you know, that's, and how it tastes. So first I just kind of go by like, okay, that looks like the right proportion of tomatoes to onions. I think it still needs a little bit more. Okay. And then I'm going to put in about 3/4 of the garlic and a good chunk of the jalapeno. Mix it all up. Something I didn't share with you about the avocados. So avocados, you've probably experienced it where, you buy them, they're rock hard, and then, finally they are ready, and now you don't, maybe you're about to go out of town or something like that. So what you can do is peel them just like I did, and either smash them up or just like that, freeze them, and they will work just fine. Or you can even make guacamole and freeze it completely. And it will, as long as you have to keep like something completely next to the skin of it so it doesn't get any air next to it. And so you just make sure like the plastic or whatever you have next to it stays exactly uptight to it. Okay, so that's looking good for Pico de Gallo. I'm just gonna add a little, I'm gonna do some cilantro. So you see how I do this? I just cut it here. And then you can just cut it into your dish. And I do this with almost any herb I have, but especially these leafy ones like cilantro and parsley. It's just a lot easier. Okay, we'll just mix this up. I think it's gonna need more cilantro. I like lots and lots of cilantro. So again, this is what's so fun, is there's no recipe is really needed. It's just kind of to your taste. So I think I had like 5 small to medium-sized tomatoes, 1 red or 1 white onion. That was only about 4 cloves of garlic, and truth be told, I probably would like a lot more because when I make my guacamole, I like a lot of garlic in it, but I'll just use what I have from the freezer. And I had 2 jalapenos, and that's usually about right. Usually about 1 jalapeno in the guacamole and 1 jalapeno in the Pico de Gallo is kind of on average what I do. So, and the thing is, this is really better like in a few hours once the cilantro is kind of, the cilantro and the garlic have kind of melded all their little flavors together. I'm gonna put some more cilantro in there. And I told you, I like a lot. And the nice thing about this too is you're not, it's like the stems can go in there, everything can go in there. And you can really just kind of chop it as finely as you would like it. Okay, that's that. And I'm gonna put some lemon and lime over it. We'll just do half of each right now, and some salt. Yeah, so that's looking a lot better. So again, I just go by looks as well as just, I know that I'm gonna always want a lot of cilantro. So I'm just gonna do that's probably about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, maybe like a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. We're gonna start there. Pick up all these little cilantro bits, they can go in, and then we'll just do 1/2 lime. And 1/2 lemon. Now the lime really makes a difference. I have made it when I didn't have a lime on hand, and I just made it with lemon juice. And honestly, it's just not as good. You can make it without the lemon, but not without the lime. It really needs that, I don't know what that adds, that limey sweet flavor to it. It's kind of almost essential, at least in my mind it is. You'd have to kind of make your own decision. So I'm going to stir this all up and give it a taste, but knowing that these flavors are going to change a lot over the next couple of hours here as everything kind of marinates together. But we can still get started on the guacamole here in just a second. For now, I'm going to try this. Definitely needs more lime. Needs more lime, for sure. So I'm going to use a whole lime. Okay. And I'm going to put the rest of this garlic in here, and then for the guacamole, I'm going to have to use my frozen garlic. I just ran out of garlic, or actually the garlic that I hadn't noticed. It all just dried up in my pantry, so I was really bummed about that. Okay, I'll give this a try. And like I said, I can just spoon some of this into my guacamole, so I can have tomatoes and onions and all those things in there, but then I still like to add more cilantro, more jalapeno, and more garlic. So I'll try this. We'll see. The real test is when my son has it, because he is like the aficionado. It's getting there. He just needs a little bit of lemon. I'm not going to do this whole lemon, but just a little bit. And I think it needs a little bit of the jalapeno seeds. Just needs some spice. So I'm going to take, so you can see me, I'm just going to take this pith and kind of chop it up. It's got the seeds in there. Not a lot. I don't like a lot of spice, because again, this will all kind of meld in there. I'm going to maybe just a few more of the seeds. I don't think they're as spicy as that pith. So we'll put some of those in there, just so it has a little bit of a kick to it. Not a lot. So if you're cooking for people who don't like spice, you can see how you can easily just not have it. Okay. Okay. So that's that. I'm going to meet you back here in just a second and show you how to smash the avocados. I just need a second bowl here. I'll see you in just a second. Now we're going to make the guacamole, and because I have to use the frozen garlic, I'm going to make sure to put that in first. I'm just going to do like, let's see, I had 2 avocados, so I'm going to do 3 of these. Okay, so that's about 3 cloves of garlic. These aren't as pungent as the raw garlic chopped, and then what I do to help that melt really quickly, I'm just going to put some lemon and lime juice over it. And then we'll smash our avocados over it. But that way these will get nice and melted. Okay, so we just got to get those melted. Otherwise, you would use fresh garlic, and I do think the fresh garlic is better than the frozen, but it works. Let's see here. So we'll just use our fork and kind of smash this up. It is a lifesaver to have that always in the freezer. Just never know, right? When you're gonna make something or the mood strikes to make something and you don't have X, Y, and Z on hand. So I always try to have I've decided a long time ago, cilantro is only I think at my store it's like 89 cents. Maybe it went up to $1, I don't know. But I just figured, you know what? If every time I go to the store, I just buy it. Always have it on hand. It's just, if I have to throw it away, I have to throw it away. But it seems like when I need it, I just want it in my fridge. Okay, so there is the garlic. Now we're just gonna take these guys in here and just do a bunch of them. And I just always use a fork to smash it. You can, get one of those smashers. I don't know what you call them. I guess they're called smashers. People have them. Again, in my 40 years of making guacamole, I've never ever needed one. A fork has always been plenty. And some people, if you like it really blended, I suppose you could put it in a blender, but I don't know, I kind of like it sort of chunky and smushy. I like those sort of, me, I kind of like everything sort of imperfect. So, some bites are a little chunkier than others, and I think that's kind of nice. So you just use the side of the bowl and, and your fork and smash it. Another cheater guacamole, just FYI, if you have a favorite salsa and you don't have time to make Pico de Gallo and the guacamole, but you just want to have, salsa and guacamole, I have been known to, and people seem to have liked it, just putting some salsa in the smashed avocado. It's a totally different flavor. This is, It's not on par with this kind of freshness, but if you needed something like really quick, you know, people are coming over and you want to have guacamole and salsa and chips, you can do that. You just smash up avocado and you put in a little bit of salsa in there to your taste, and that is it. But again, it's a totally different animal than what we're doing here. This is just a very fresh guacamole. So, and then speaking of keeping this fresh, kind of alluded to it earlier, but you have to have like no air on the surface. That's what ultimately keeps this from getting brown. I mean, you can try putting the seed in there and all that stuff, but the thing that I have found that works the most is if I have to, you know, if I have leftovers, I put it in its container, flatten it out completely, and then put some water over it so that none of the guacamole gets exposed to the air. And that seems to really help keep it from going brown. Okay, so I'm gonna put in some cilantro, and actually then we'll put in some of our Pico de Gallo and some salt. So we use just a few of these so that I get some of the tomatoes and all the other stuff in my guacamole. Now, again, if that just, you know, if that's not your boat, if it doesn't float your boat and you don't want the tomatoes in there, you just don't do that. You'll just, you know, adjust the cilantro and the onions and everything to your taste. I'm just gonna put a few more onions in here, and I'm gonna put the rest of the jalapeños. And that's it. Like, this is how easy this is. And we'll put some salt. And again, this is probably about, that's probably about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and maybe like another 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper. That's what I'm going to use to start. And we'll see. So fun, right? To make things to your taste, and then you just don't need a recipe. You just need the ingredients, and that is it. So you can see I'm going to have some leftover onions, and that's perfect for, I'll saute that up tomorrow with some mushrooms and some greens, and add some eggs to it, and then probably top it with some guacamole. So let's try this. Okay, so that is it. Can you see? I mean, like, it's literally just chopping and mixing to your taste. So again, you really don't need a recipe. I'm sure there's maybe some perfect recipe out there, but honestly, it's got to be something you like to eat. And so it's just mixing this stuff up. You can see, oh, well, these are my onions too that I'll be using tomorrow. Anyway, they're there. You can see on my avocado or my guacamole, I've kind of just started flattening out. You want this kind of like perfectly flat, and then you just gently, you don't want the water putting like a little hole in it, but just you gently pour water over the top of it and cover it. And then when you go to use it the next day or the next time, you pour the water off, and then you would just kind of, because there'll still be a little water remaining on the surface, but whatever, and just kind of mix it in, and then it's ready to go. Now, if anybody else has tips on storing guacamole, put it in your notes there in the comment section, okay? I think we can all learn from each other, but for me, that's been the best way to do it. I've tried the seed in there, and that's really never made a big difference. I do know if you store it in kind of higher, thinner containers, that also helps, because again, you just have less surface area being exposed to the air, but I don't have one right now, so that's what this is going in. All right, you guys, thank you for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoy these. Let me know how it goes.